everyone. Welcome to today's Talk with Erika. I'm Erika Del Sordo. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, on the right bottom corner is the subscribe button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out all the other podcasts on todaystalkwitherika.com, where this podcast is going to be as well. So with me today, I have a beautiful woman who's going to talk about stuff that pertains to all of us. It's Ashley Krejci-Shaw, and she is the founder of InterMediate Planning and managing director as well. She's got a lot on her plate. You've got kids as well. We got a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely happy to have you with me today. This is wonderful that you could be with me. I'm super excited. Let's talk about what it is you do. Start to get people into the mindset of, I know we're reducing stress. We're going to talk about work and what's going on these days, how the times are changing. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Certainly. Well, thank you for the question. That's a great question. So, InterMediate Planning is what I say is a minority-owned consultancy company. And so what we do is we work with decision makers who typically have a lot of resources, and we essentially try to pair them and help them meet the needs of the stakeholders that they have. Either that can mean like a workforce, or it can mean people in the community that they're trying to serve. When it comes to intermediate, I do feel very confident that we have been able to move a conversation forward about what vulnerability actually looks like. I feel like there's a lot of assumptions as to what vulnerability is, and we sort of narrow it down to some sort of very stereotypical ideas of what it is. But essentially what we do is we're really trying to, as ethically as possible and as efficiently as possible, try to take groups who say, know what they want, have a need, and know what to do with resources if they are, if they actually receive them, and really sort of pair them with groups of people who have resources, have good intentions, and essentially want to be a part of, achieving something, for a greater good.
How is this working out for businesses? How is this working out for companies? How does this all go and flow?
Well, for companies right now, I feel that there's a lot of employers that are just in disarray because so much of the workforce landscape has changed. I mean, COVID just, put everything on its head. And I think already we were already, as sort of a labor force, a workforce, people were already sort of migrating away from, the traditions of the 40-hour work week.
Mhm.
But now more than ever, I feel that employers are, if anyone's stressed, I think it's employers, because they're not really quite sure how to accommodate this new workforce that essentially can make asks and can make demands, although politely usually, who want to find
Right.
a different balance in their lives. So it's not just employees that are stressed now. I think employers are definitely feeling stressed.
I can agree to that. Absolutely. I feel like people definitely feel the strain and everything going on. Um, Explain to me your background and how that fuels your passion for advocating for better resources for the community and, for more responsible decision-making leaders.
Well, I feel that what's kind of driven me to this work is purely sustainability, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But I grew up in a place that was very rich in natural capital. And so I grew up with this value system of you take care of your resources, and, resources are finite. And over time, what I came to learn through my own study was that, human capital is our most valuable resource. And so we also have to take care of the human capital, the people who are around us. So there's this upbringing component, I think, that drove me to this work. And then also understanding the impact of decision makers in the lives of people who usually don't even meet decision makers who have such an influence on them. From my parents, my father was someone who was essentially a political refugee. He was Czechoslovakian. He's passed away, God bless him, but he was a political refugee and couldn't go back to his home country of Czechoslovakia until what we call the Velvet Revolution. And his whole world was really, really spun around by the fact that there was a political system in place that he, could not agree with and could not build a life around. My mother is African American, and so she's from the South. And just, being a child of the civil rights movement and growing up in a time where there's anti-Black policies, and you might have an environment that's very safe in its way, but everything outside of that parameter is essentially dangerous. So, decision makers are very influential in our lives, and I think wanting to be able to positively impact them and to sort of be a voice of reason. Truly to be an intermediary is really what has driven me to this work.
That's wonderful. You have quite the background, and seemingly your parents have had a lot to do with
Yeah.
what you're doing today.
Mhm.
So a lot of your work does surround around sustainable development. Talk to me about typically that term not a lot of people understand. So can you break down what sustainable development is?
So the thing about sustainable development, it sounds very simple, but when I in the past when I've tried to explain it, it hasn't always been so straightforward. And I think part of the reason is that we tend to equate or associate sustainability with, say, environmental sciences, ecology, or even technology like I don't know, like wind turbines or something like that. But for me and the people who practice sustainable development in terms of human capital and sort of peace building and things like that, for us, it's about being able to bring groups of people together, and also being mindful of all of their needs and making really smart decisions based on what's happening. And typically, those decisions are done in very compelling circumstances. So usually, there is something that's unfolding. There's a dissatisfaction. There's a disturbance of some kind. There's a real need driving this work. So essentially, it's about making really good decisions, keeping everybody's interests in mind, and then, sort of coming to solutions together.
I really like that. And again, it's working. So this is really wonderful. And I'm so happy to have you on talking about this.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. One of your slogans is that institutions don't change, but people do. So what's a good example of a sustainability practice that leaders in our community can put into action? Now, let me ask this. Where are you geographically right now?
North Charleston.
Okay. All right.
Really?
And I'm in Lake City, Florida.
Okay.
So it's a little different there. That's why I'm curious as to see what you think geographically. What are the differences between where we are, and is it,
Well, I
you
haven't. Well, I haven't been there. We have a Lake City too, by the way. I don't know if
I
you've heard of Lake
know.
City, South Carolina,
Yep.
but
There's one in
well,
Georgia too.
yeah, there's got to be lakes. There's lots of lake cities, but no, in terms of, can you restate the question just a little bit? So, sustainable practice.
So what's a good example of a sustainability practice that leaders in our community can put into action?
Okay, so really what applies anywhere. So I would say most definitely knowing your stakeholders. So the stakeholders are everyone that's around you, all the groups, all the people, and all of the interests that have some influence on whatever it is you're doing. So that could be an employer who has a business, small business, corporation, doesn't matter. Or it could be, say, a professional change agent, someone who works for a nonprofit, a philanthropist, excuse me. It doesn't matter sort of who you are, it applies to everybody. Stakeholders are the people who are around you. So getting to know them and understanding their needs, and also their needs in relation to what you're trying to achieve. The thing about stakeholder analysis and understanding your stakeholders is that many people don't really recognize the value of that, because you're going to a job every day, you see everyone around you, you think you know everything, but the truth is everything about them, your situation, is changing. It's not static. And so finding a way to have a practice in which you're constantly sort of, well, not constantly, but periodically sort of assessing who's around you and sort of their influence over your goals, your objectives, whether it's you or your entire team, is a really important strategy, I think, or practice you can put into play. And then also cross-cultural communication, because communication is hands down one of the leading issues I come across in the work I do. And it's usually miscommunication, and it's cross-cultural miscommunication. So it's groups of people who work in diverse teams, who have differences, don't really know how to acknowledge them, but essentially can't really be unified because they're kind of talking around one another, or there's resentments that are sort of piling up and they don't know how to sort of resolve that. So those are the two universal strategies I would say would apply anywhere in the world, not just in the US.
Right, right. Boy, I had another question. I'll come back to it. But but I was going to say, what change would you like to see? What is it that you would like to see change wise? Let's talk about that.
Well, it depends on what hat, I'm going to wear to answer that question. As an academic, as somebody who specializes in qualitative research, I'll say that I very much would like to see, more interest and more work done around how we assess value. how we deem something to be of value, either like, for instance, one example might be children who are in public school, right? Is the letter grade so important, or is the standard important as, say, building confidence in the child, or having assessments that we can determine whether or not a child has more more resiliency, things like that. So I want to see more measures or more assessment of measures on that front. But as somebody who works in the community, I'd really like to see more work done in the area of conflict resolution. Because like one thing I've noticed here in our community and surrounding communities is that conflict can really just halt conversations, and it really halts progress. And I truly feel that if there was more training and more work around how to work together, we would do so much better. So I'd like to see that happen more.
Absolutely. I was going to say, so communication and conflict, those really are the two big ones, because think about it. These are the issues we have in our personal lives too, right? Relationships,
Right.
not just the workplace.
That's right.
What are some businesses you've worked with in regards to what you do?
So the great thing about the work I'm doing is that usually the things that bring clients to me are so universal, as I said, like communication, wanting to understand, workforce better so that the workplace can be more positive. So I work a lot with philanthropists, nonprofits. I can work with for-profits. It's really folks who are tied to a community want, need, or say like a conflict.
And is it global, or is it just in the States?
Well, my education actually is very global, and I just really apply it to what I call first world problems, like, so these first world type of conflicts, but
Right.
it certainly can be. The work, one thing I love about the work I do and how I do it is that it applies everywhere. It's not just something that applies in the US or in a Western context. The principles of it, the methods of it are certainly global.
Wow. How long have you been doing this?
Well, InterMediate got started in 2015 officially, but my training in sustainability started in 2012.
Okay. So a
Yeah.
while. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very good.
A little while. Got a little, experience behind me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
you do. I
me.
was just curious. I mean, just because you have so much behind you, and you're well versed in this, and you've got this down, and it's something that I think more people need to see more of you probably
Oh, thank
helping.
you.
Yes, yeah.
The
That's
work
how
is
I feel.
well, thank you. The work is very important. And when we're talking about things that I would also like to see, I'd also like to see more interest in the approach that InterMediate has, because it's one I talk a lot in my work about professionally having this practice and being well versed in non-judgment. Being able to be non-judgmental, but also to exercise your discernment. And that might seem like a very small distinction, but it's a really big one when we're talking about trying to meet groups of people and individuals where they are, and then also trying to help them figure out how they can be, produce their best work or be the best leader that they can be, right? So
Absolutely.
that's some of the philosophies of InterMediate, I guess.
Well, I like that. I really like that. Where can people find you? Do you have a website? Where can folks find out more?
So yes, InterMediate has a website, and it's intermediateplanning.com. And I have just some basic information about me, but I also have some work posted on my site, and there's some links to my social media pages. And then also I can be reached to Ashley at intermediateplanning.com.
Okay, that's wonderful. Have I
Mhm.
left anything out? Do you want to add anything else before we go?
No, I think your questions were great, and I appreciate you asking them. And thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Folks, reach out to Ashley if you do have any questions. Check out her website. You can find all of her information, by the way, in the About and Info section for both the YouTube video podcast as well as the audio podcasts. Or you can just go to my mobile app, or you can go to todaystalkwitherica.com. Thank you, Ashley, for being with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Today's Talk with Erika. Join us next week for a brand new show. Please subscribe to all of Erika's audio and video platforms. And remember to visit todaystalkwitherica.com for all show content, blogs, social media channels, and more. Hey, thanks for listening and watching.